Well, here we go on a Thursday. And hi again, everybody, and welcome to Dialed In. I'm Tom Brenneman. Luke Brenneman will join us from Bloomington, Indiana here in a matter of moments. And, of course, spinning the dials. Busting his tail over there. He's in meltdown mode. Jacob Tissett. Are you okay over there?
I'm good.
You sure?
Good. We're good and we're rolling. So it's all on Luke here the rest of the way. I think I'm good. I think I'm in the
Okay, so we're going to find out if Luke's Wi-Fi is any better than his grandfather's Wi-Fi, right?
That's right.
Okay. All right. Our show presented by UDF and Encore Technologies. We come your way twice a week on Monday mornings at 9:15. You can watch us on Chatterbox Sports. We will post later in the day on the Believe Network. And then Thursdays now at 5 after 12. So you can find us on the YouTube/Chatterbox Sports page. Download us anytime, anywhere. Just search Dialed In with Tom Brenneman, and you are dialed in. All right. We're 4 days and counting. From the big showdown at Paycor in the AFC North, the Bengals home underdogs against the defending champion Baltimore Ravens. Now, which Ravens team shows up for this game? The one that just bludgeoned Buffalo, and I mean just hammered them, right? Or the one that lost to the woeful Raiders? For that matter, which Bengals defense will show up for this game? The ones who played pretty doggone well in Kansas City. Forced 3 turnovers. They get a penalty there at the end that cost it, but the defense played well in that game. Or the same tired group that we've seen against Washington and then last weekend against Carolina. The defense is getting healthier. Trey Hendrickson looks like he's a go. 3 other defensive linemen look like they're back, including last year's number 1 pick, Myles Murphy. Kickoff is set for 1 o'clock on CBS. We'll talk all about this. And we're going to have a buy or sell today on the Bengals. Are they contenders again if they win this weekend? Elsewhere in the division, Cleveland plays in Washington. Commanders are rolling. And the Steelers host Dallas on Sunday night. Lots of picks coming up in a bit. Someone right now, by the way, has a 5-game lead in this whole operation. Someone has a 5-game lead. I'm not quite sure who that might be. We'll find out in a minute or moments. College football, UC's off this week. Ohio State hosts a pretty solid Iowa team. That game is in Columbus. Iowa's only lost 1 time, and that was at the buzzer against rival Iowa State. They've looked pretty good. They're scoring a lot more. Miami plays at Toledo. Then baseball, decisive Game 3 tonight in the National League wild card. Milwaukee at home. The winner moves on to the division series. They take on the Mets. And the winner will battle Philadelphia. The other half in the National League is all sewn up. That'll be the Dodgers and the Padres. In the American League, things are completely set. Detroit plays at Cleveland. Kansas City sweeps Baltimore 2 in a row. We'll go to the Bronx and take on the Yanks. All 4 division series begin on Saturday. All right, Luke Brenneman, here we go. Let's talk about the Bengals. A lot of talk around here. I know you're back on campus. A lot of talk here about some of these defensive linemen getting back. Chris Jenkins played pretty well last week. Myles Murphy coming back. Hendrickson looks like he's a go. What are your thoughts now 4 days away?
Well, I think that my biggest takeaway starts with when you start 0-3 and you get on the board, I think it was a sigh of relief for all of us. We watched the game together, and it's like, okay, we're on the board. But the biggest thing that I'm looking at is the following week. It's Sunday Night Football against one of the worst teams in the NFL, the New York Giants. So if you're able to pull out a win this Sunday against the Ravens, I'm not locking in a win over the Giants by any means, but you're very much right back on track. And to follow that, you play the Browns. So I think you can be very optimistic heading into this week. And my biggest takeaway is this idea that if you look at the spread, the Bengals are 2.5-point home underdogs. You never like being a home underdog in a divisional game because it kind of puts you're taking a backseat pretty much to another team in your division. But when you start 0-3 and you play the caliber of defense and football that the Bengals have had, you have to accept that. However, the Ravens were 2.5-point favorites against the Bills on Sunday Night Football, and the Bills look like the best team in the NFL heading into that game. So the Ravens, they dominate them. You get the same spread as the Bills. I think that puts the Bengals right there in the thick of it when it comes to the analytics, what the experts think of this team from an odds perspective. Now you move to the actual football, and like you mentioned, is this injuries coming back? Is this Joe Burrow really being that good? Because although the Bengals are 1-3, This offense is pretty dominant, guys. 33 points against the Commanders. You score 34 against the Panthers. They should have scored well over 25 against the Chiefs if they could convert in the red zone. So there is some, I said it in baseball, a torch in the tunnel right now. And Sunday, October 6th at 1 o'clock is going to be the biggest indicator of the season so far. You can always say the next game is the biggest game, but this is a massive game for so many different reasons. And obviously, it's a divisional matchup as well.
I got to tell you, Jacob, I don't know what to think about the Bengals this weekend. I really don't. We're going to make a pick a little bit later on, but I just can't figure them out. I think most fans can't figure them out. I mean, the black and white is the offense has been good. The defense has been brutal outside of the Kansas City game. In fairness, they haven't had all of their players, but that is no excuse for the secondary or the linebacking play for that matter. What are your thoughts?
The season kind of hangs in the balance this weekend. And I don't necessarily mean that in terms of the last, 14 games or whatever don't matter if we lose this one. But I think the goal of being a Super Bowl contender legitimately hangs in the balance against the Ravens. If we're going to take care of business against the Panthers and the teams of that level the rest of the season, that's great. But if you can't go out and beat the Baltimore Ravens or teams on that echelon in the NFL, then you can't compete for a Super Bowl. We can sit here and talk about a 1-4 team. Hey, let's get 10 wins. Let's sneak into the playoffs. Who knows what happens as a wild card? Well, it doesn't happen very often for a reason. It's very, very hard for a wild card team to get all the way to the Super Bowl, accomplish that ultimate goal that every Bengals fan had coming into the season. I think that is on the line this week against the Ravens, and that's why I am optimistic. I think these guys understand how much this game means and how much the season does rest in the balance. And that's why Joe Burrow yesterday said, I have to be damn near perfect. Because he knows how poor this defense has been so far, that if the Bengals want a chance against any even half of a competitor, they have to score 30 to 35 points, which requires a perfect game in the NFL from a quarterback. So
it does.
The Bengals are in a very, very hard spot right now. And when I say Joe has to be perfect, it's not a shot at Joe. It's more a shot at the defense.
Sure.
He has so much that he has to do in order to keep the Bengals in the mix of games against an offense that can move the ball. The Ravens are the best early down team in the league. The Bengals are 27th. This game's going to come down to first and second down, keeping the Ravens behind the sticks, not letting Lamar and Derrick Henry get comfortable. And I'm not sure how confident I am in the Bengals to do that, but I think it's going to be a very, very close game.
Yeah, I mean, I'm with you. I just sit there and I say to myself, you look, and I don't like comparing last year to a new year. But I think we all agree their defense was bad last year. Their defense is bad so far this year. In the division, the only reason the Bengals won a divisional game last year is because it was the last game of the year against Cleveland, and they did not play any of their starters. Otherwise, there's a good chance they go 0-6 last year. And what do those three teams have in common? They line up, they run it. That's what they do. And now all of a sudden you've taken it even to another level with Baltimore with Derrick Henry. So I'm just really having a hard time. I mean, we're going to get to the picks, like I said, in a little bit, Luke. But I don't know, Luke, what makes you think or makes anybody else think that based on what we've seen for a year and now 4 games, that this Bengals defense is going to stop somebody running the football who runs it well.
Yeah, and I think running it well is one thing, and running it really well coming into the game is another. Derrick Henry dominant on Sunday Night Football. However, the Bengals have contained Lamar Jackson quite well since that breakout rookie year game when he just embarrassed the entire city of Cincinnati, maybe even the state of Ohio, with what he did on the ground of the Bengals. But if you look back to when this really all blossomed, the Jamar era, the Burrow era, it was in Baltimore in a blowout win. It was the offense who played really well. The defense turned them over a few times. And I think that's what we're looking for here. It's more of the Bengals defense, tell Tom Brenneman to shut up. Tell Jacob to shut up. Tell me to shut up. Go out there. You are a veteran group who has played Super Bowl caliber football together, who has won an AFC championship. There's new pieces that are high-level draft picks that haven't entirely panned out. Show up and go prove somebody wrong this week, because if there's a time to do it, get to 2-3 with a divisional win, and then we go. Because talk about optimism in Cincinnati. This defense, they need to show up and then put the ball in Joe Burrow's hands, put the ball in the $500 million hands, and you say, go win us a football game, because at the end of the day, that's their job, and then that's Joe's job to execute.
All right, I got to step out just for a second because there's some great comments in the chat here today. Luke, regarding where you are right now. So Blackmore says, are you back in Bobby Knight's old office? And Everett wants to know, is that the ghost of Stonewall Jackson in one of those pictures right there where you're looking at your left shoulder?
No, this is our library at our fraternity house, and although it may look nice with a couple founding fathers, I believe, behind me, there's a table that you guys don't even want to know what's on it to my right. It looks like a 3-week-old baked potato, some chicken curry. It smells like
why doesn't somebody clean it up?
I don't know. I mean, I've kind of turned this into my own little podcast lab, so maybe I should do that. But we've been all over the place this week. I just stole this sweet shirt out of the laundry. Anything kind of goes in this house.
Yeah.
So I guess I have a nice office behind me. Whatever. Bobby Knight's office, that works.
Yeah, Bobby Knight's office would work. And by the way, I mean, we're going to get to college football in a little bit, but I mean, is Bloomington fired up about the Hoosiers? I mean, you've been on this football beat the whole year, and now all of a sudden they're 5-0. They're ranked for the first time in forever. They're going to Northwestern this weekend, where they're a big favorite. Is it going on there, or are they still a little? We'll see.
It was a little, I will see, and then they had their second conference game last week. They dominate Maryland. This Indiana team's beating teams by 30+, and I think the biggest knock on their schedule, if you watched Off the Bench, whether that was today or yesterday, and they did a buy or sell on Indiana, and if they're a legit playoff contender, I think that might be jumping to an early conclusion. This is a team whose over-under win total was around 5.5, 6 wins. They haven't played in a bowl game since what feels like the Vietnam War. And it's just something that I really do. I'm really happy for Bloomington because the locals are all involved. The student body is finally involved in a football team. And at the end of the day, say what you want about how bad this program has been. This is a huge student body. This is a Big Ten school. There should be a football presence on campus. And they have a lot more than just a football presence. They're in the top 25, and they're going to beat Northwestern, and then they have a week off before they play the biggest game of the year when Nebraska comes into town for homecoming weekend. So it's absolutely going on here. All the fraternities, sororities fired up about it. There's going to be banners all over these houses as this weekend goes on as they try and move to 6-0.
All right, well, that'll be this coming weekend on Saturday, and they're playing in basically, it's not even a college stadium at Northwestern. I don't know if any of you are familiar or really care. But they're building a new stadium there. And so they basically have taken over a practice field or a lacrosse field or something right on the lakefront, right?
It's their old practice facility.
Yeah, and they got bleachers set up for the game.
Yeah.
The only game they're playing at Wrigley Field is when Ohio State comes in, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah, that'll be later in the year.
I had a friend actually go to one of those Northwestern games at that practice facility. Yeah. He said it's one of the coolest places he's ever watched a game. It's so tight-knit. You're standing right next to literally everyone in the stadium. There's no upper deck. There's no spread out. And then you look right over the far sideline, and it's the river. It's just a beautiful backdrop. I would love to go.
The lake.
Yeah, the lake.
Right.
It's just a beautiful backdrop. I'd love to get to see a game. They're only playing there for this year, right?
Yeah,
or are they there again
next
year?
Their new stadium will be
Gotcha.
Well, I mean, who knows? Who knows with this?
I mean, we couldn't even get we couldn't even get media credentials. That's why I'm not going. They only. It's difficult to even get a spot there. Apparently, they only have 14 spots for the visiting media team, and I know it's Northwestern. They're not very good at football, but this is Big Ten. I mean, that is about tight as it gets. But the new facility I looked into, that stadium is like a mini Viking stadium. I don't know if it's just the purple and the design or whatever, but it looks just all world, just unreal setup that they're building there.
I did a game at their old stadium, and I thought it was really cool. They played Illinois. It was a big rivalry game. But look, let's get to this buy or sell thing. You came up with the idea about this, Luke, about the Bengals. What are we buying or selling?
So the buy or sell is that a Bengals win on Sunday would have them back as a contender. It was originally back as talks about the contender, but forget the talks. If the Bengals win on Sunday, are they a Super Bowl contender again? And I know we all have our biases, so I want each of you to think about this. But let's start with Chatterbox Bengals himself. Jacob, take it away.
Absolutely. I said it this morning on Off the Bench. I said if the Bengals win this week, I'll be just as back in as I was in the preseason.
Oh,
I'll
my
think
God.
we're all the way back because the defense is going to have to take a massive step for the Bengals to even have a chance in this game. The Ravens have dominated early downs and ran for over 5 yards a carry with multiple guys. Lamar Jackson over 5 yards a carry. Derrick Henry over 5 yards a carry. Zay Flowers over 5 yards a carry. Justice Hill over 5 yards a carry. Their running attack is unbelievable.
Yep.
And if the Bengals are to win on Sunday, this defense is going to have to take a step that I think a lot of us don't think they can take. So if they win on Sunday, I'm all the way back in, but only because of what I think it would mean for how the team has progressed from last week in the first four.
Okay. Luke?
I'm going to buy it too. I mean, it feels like each week it takes a while to get to game day and an 0-3 start, a slow start. I wouldn't even rule this team out at 1-4. This season is so long. However, a win over the Ravens coming off that domination they had on Sunday night, I'm absolutely buying that. I think the Bengals will be more than back because the only missing piece is 50% of the field right now. And I think Lou Anarumo, of all guys, can really turn this group around along with some injury help, getting some guys back on the field. I'm buying that.
Well, Mark Fetter says, and I agree with this is like when you're playing one of those college teams where you're hoping to have time of possession. And really, it's how Kentucky beat Ole Miss last week, is you don't let them get on the field.
Yep.
So, we're not talking at all about the Baltimore defense, which is among the top every year in the National Football League. I haven't seen enough this year to know if they're as good. I know they lost some key players from last year. But you got to keep the ball away from them. So if the Bengals are able, and it's a challenge against a good team, one of the hardest things to do in football, I don't care what level it is go on 9, 10, 12, 14 play drives and not make a mistake. And a mistake could be a turnover. A mistake could be on first down, a holding call, and you're 1st and 20 behind the chains. It's really hard in football today to put together those long, sustained drives. But, unless they're hitting bang, bang, big ones and explosive plays and putting up big points, that might be what they have to do to win. Just don't let the defense play.
I said I think the Bengals' two most important run defenders this weekend are Zach Moss and Chase Brown.
Yeah.
You run the ball effectively, that's how you keep the Ravens off the field. That's how you keep the ball in Lamar Jackson's hands, in the pocket, and not Derrick Henry running it 25 times down your throat. If the Ravens get a lead early in this game, the Bengals are going to be in trouble. Because you have to keep the ball in the passing game with this Ravens offense, especially with how bad this Bengals run defense has been. I think a lot of people are putting a lot of weight on the shoulders of McKinley Jackson, a pick that was a reach according to almost all boards. He was a prospect outside the top 200 with the draft analyst we interviewed last night on Chatterbox Bengals, and the Bengals picked him in the 3rd round.
Yep.
So it's a guy you're expecting to do a lot more than he was ever projected to do as a prospect. Hopefully he can just raise the floor of this group. We have a guy in Lawrence Guy who got here a week and a half ago and is playing 45% of the snaps.
Yep.
So anybody is going to help at this point. I'm just really worried about if this Ravens team gets a lead, how the Bengals are going to get back.
All right, let's talk about the other two teams in the AFC North, the Browns and the Steelers. I think the Browns have it just confounds me to no end to know how a guy can go from being as good as he was. And I know there's a lot of distractions off the field, but there are a lot of guys that play with distractions off the field. Maybe not to the level that Deshaun Watson has gone through. It seems like he's getting lawsuits filed against him every time you turn around. He settled a bunch of them, and now there's more coming again. But this guy was a dynamic quarterback in this league. I mean, he was a better passer than Lamar Jackson, without a shadow of a doubt. He was a better passer. And while maybe not quite the runner Jackson was, Watson was a good runner. And now all of a sudden, he can't find his tail with both hands. Now, people in Cleveland, while they'll bash him, they also bash the offensive line and say the guy doesn't have a chance. Their defense, they got some players still on defense. But they've got they've got the Commanders this week in D.C. Luke, you think the Browns get it together before all is said and done, or no?
I really think it's a lost season for the Browns. I think that they're very similar to the Jags. It feels like they have all the pieces. Obviously, Nick Chubb, a huge loss for them as he rehabs. But I don't know. Something about their start just feels a little different. It could be the bias I have to Cleveland and the bias I have to the Bengals for thinking that the Bengals can turn it around. But just in the sense of what I've seen from this team, their loss last week, I still don't really think that Vegas is that bad of a football team, but they're just not playing a high level of football. You compare them to a team like Cincinnati, it's like Cincinnati's worst loss outside of week 1 when they weren't ready to play was Monday Night Football against the Commanders, which looked like a really bad loss at the time, 7.5-point favorites. And now the Commanders look like one of the better teams in the NFC Conference. So Cincinnati's like, you still score 33 points here. You still played with the Chiefs here. You got a big dominant win over Carolina with 30-plus. Again, there are bright spots. I'm not seeing much in Cleveland, and the defense isn't as dominant as it was when it kind of willed them to the postseason that year. So I'm selling the Browns completely in 2024.
Okay. Then the Steelers. I mean, look, everybody bashed them for taking a flyer on Russell Wilson. I thought they made a marvelous move by acquiring Justin Fields. Regardless of how you feel about Fields during his tenure, Caleb Williams is getting a dose of what Fields went through. I mean, it doesn't matter who they bring in. All these guys, these skill position guys around Caleb Williams, their offensive line, it stinks, and no quarterback's going to make it there. Fields has been rock solid. He had a bad half last week. He had a great second half. He's going to start again until he gives them a reason not to start them. And now they take on the Dallas Cowboys. Jacob, what do you think? You buying or selling the Steelers? They're 3-1.
I'm buying the Steelers, and honestly, at this point, it's because you couldn't pay me enough money to sell Justin Fields. I've held on to my Justin Fields stock since he got into the league and was terrible in Chicago and showed flashes. I think he's exactly the quarterback Pittsburgh needs to succeed. He's a guy that doesn't think he can get it done on his own. So he's going to put the pressure on the defense, put the pressure on the run game. They're in the mix for Devontae Adams. They made a hard push for Brandon Ayuk in the offseason before he re-signed with the Niners. I think if they can add to that receiving core, which is one of the worst in the league, George Pickens, an exciting young player, but after him, you have a rookie, Roman Wilson, then you go into Calvin Austin as your number 2 option right now. That's just not a sustainable source of weapons, especially in a league where offense is king. We can talk about how great their defense is as much as we want, but if you don't score points, you can't win games. The Bengals are overcoming a bad defense with a good offense, or at least trying to. I don't know that you can overcome a bad offense with a good defense. You at least have to be sustainable on offense, getting some points, and I think Fields is capable of doing that. We're seeing him take risks that we haven't seen him take before, throwing it deep, attacking the middle of the field. I think it would be a massive, massive mistake for Mike Tomlin and the Steelers to go back to Russell Wilson when he gets healthy. I don't expect them to, but with the conversations they keep having about not listing Fields as QB1, waiting till Russ gets healthy, Russ being fully dressed every single game even though he's inactive, I'm not entirely confident they're going to stick with Fields all year long, but I think they're certainly the best with him.
Well, you can't send him down if they're winning.
Right.
Now they're coming off a loss. And like I said, in the first half, he was brutal. But in the second half, he was great.
Yep.
So we'll see. We'll see. Luke, you buying or selling the Steelers before we get to our picks?
Could not be selling them harder. The Steelers team, to Jacob's point, I like Justin Fields because I was an Ohio State guy before I went to Indiana. But at the end of the day, Justin Fields is what he is. He's a running back playing quarterback, and, he can make that throw. The Chris Olave throw still goes in my head overnight in that bowl game. But this is a Steelers team that scored over 20 points just one time this season. It was last week in their loss right here in Indianapolis, and that touchdown that got them over the 20-point mark, they lost 27-24, was when the Colts were up by 2 possessions, and they're like, we're going to let you check down until you get down to the field. If you score, you score, but we want it to take 5.5 minutes so that we can win the game. That's exactly what happened. You have to be able to score to win in the NFL. Jacob knows that. He just said it. There's something about this defense, though. They have playmakers. They actually have the best defender in the entire NFL in TJ Watt, where I think this team is going to do what they do best. Mike Tomlin teams are going to finish at 9-10 wins, over 500, if not right on it, and they're going to put themselves in a position where in the final 2 weeks of the season, they're playing for a playoff spot. But if you look at their back half of their schedule, the last 6 weeks of the season, they play the Bengals twice, they play the Chiefs, they play the Eagles, and they play the Ravens. So I'm completely selling this team. I think they at the end of the year, no matter who their quarterback is, they probably lose 5 of their last 7 games and don't make the postseason.
All right, that's good stuff. Looking ahead of that schedule. And they're playing a much tougher schedule than the Bengals are because of where they finished last year, and the Bengals finishing last in the division. All right, before you go to class, allegedly, I know you have 9 more minutes. Are you going to take us through now, Luke, our picks of the week?
Yeah, I can. I can stay a little longer, too. I can show up. I can get over there pretty quick.
Are you telling your dad you're cutting class or showing up late to class?
It's for work.
No, I'm more of the type of guy where if I'm going to be late, I don't even show up. So if it turns into that, it turns into that, but I don't think it will. Okay. Missouri v. A&M. This is a really good game. Number 9, Missouri. Number 25, A&M. By the way, a little standings update. Tom Brennan at number 1. How about 19 and 13? He's hit 19 of the 32 games we've picked. I got to give it up. I don't give you credit much. Time. Coming off a 6-2 week, 6 of 8 last week. Casey and I tied for second at 14 and 18. I was 3 and 5 last week. Casey 2 and 6. So that's why Casey isn't here. We told him to find a replacement. Therefore, we are left with Jake. So Missouri A&M, all started off. I'm just going to take A&M. They're really hard to beat at home. They lost to Notre Dame in that opening week game, but I think they're going to be more ready this time. This Missouri team almost lost to Vanderbilt a couple weeks ago actually at home. So that atmosphere in College Station, it's too much. A&M gets the win and covers 2.
All right, Jake.
I'm also taking A&M, and that's not great. But I'm also taking A&M -2. I think when you have a team like Missouri in the top 10 going on the road in conference and they're an underdog, it's kind of why is the line that way? So I'm just going to take the other side. I don't believe in Missouri. I know a lot of people do. I don't think Brady Cook's very good. I think he's a merchant of their wide receiver talent, which might be some of the best in the entire country. But I think when they run into some more competitive teams, they're gonna hit a wall. So I'm taking A&M -2.
You know, Missouri had a great year last year, and they went to a bowl game, a major bowl game, and they played Ohio State. And all they talk about is beating Ohio State in that game when Ohio State had all backup players. A lot of their main guys didn't even play. McCord had transferred. Marvin Harrison Jr. didn't play. The list goes on and on and on and on and on. And Missouri walks around like they beat Ohio State. They won the game. I mean, good for them. That's great. They're trying to build their program up. Their coach has done a hell of a job. I'm not buying Missouri either. I think they go down there. And A&M comes away with the win. All right, so all 3 of us go that route. All right, what's up next, Luke?
All right, Iowa and the Buckeyes, the Big Ten matchup. This Iowa team has a lot of hype coming into the year, and they might have the worst quarterback in the Big Ten in Cade McNamara as of right now. But the line's 19.5. Ohio State at home, ranked number 3 in the country. I'm going to take Iowa in this game. I think it's too many points. Their defense is really good, and Ohio State, they haven't really been tested yet. I think this is significantly more of a test than, say, Michigan State was last week. I know it was on the road, but Ohio State was 25-point favorites in that one. I'm going to take Iowa with the points. It's really sketchy, but I think it's too many.
All right, we don't have the graphic up yet. I know you're working on that over there, Jacob. What do you think here? 19.5. Oh, I mentioned earlier now, Iowa has blown everybody out they've played so far this year except for their big in-state rival, Iowa State, which, by the way, Iowa State is ranked 2. Okay? And they lost by 1 at the buzzer. So you're right about a big test for Ohio State. I just think Ohio State is laser-focused. I watched a number of comments from some of their players yesterday in various press conferences. This team is all about team. And they know Oregon waits next week out in Oregon. I think the Buckeyes show up and they roll over Iowa this week. Jacob?
Could not agree more, Tom. I bought that this was a trap game yesterday when we bought or sold trap game on off the bench, but that does not mean Ohio State's not going to get the win. Teams win trap games all the time. I just think this is a dangerous team to overlook. I think Iowa has a strong defense and a local Hamilton kid at running back who's pretty dang good and definitely wants to show Ohio State what they're missing out on by not having him up in Columbus. So it's a game I'm definitely worried about, but the spread being what it is, below 21, I'm very confidently taking the Buckeyes.
Okay, what's next, Luke?
All right, fellas. Jacob just mentioned the word trap game. I love a good trap game, and I don't think it gets more trappish than this one. Number 10, Michigan, on the road in Washington, a 2.5-point spread, but it's the Huskies who draw favorites. That's the 2-loss Washington Huskies as 2.5-point favorites at home. Dad, what do you got?
I'm going to go with Michigan. I wrestle with this one a little bit. I've not watched Washington much so far this season, but it's a good program. It's a really good program. There's no doubt about it. But I just think, Michigan, they're still playing really good defense. They're going to run the ball, and I think most of the time when these good Big Ten teams are facing these new Big Ten teams, that generally speaking, and it will evolve over time because the style of play in the conference that they're in now, but generally when the Oregons and the Washingtons and these teams face teams that want to run it at them and really pound the ground, they have success. Therefore, I take Michigan.
You said it perfectly right there. Exactly the point I was going to make. I know this is a conference matchup now. I don't care. This is Big Ten football against West Coast football. Michigan has 2 of the best running backs in the country, and they're going to run it right down Washington's throat. I, again, don't understand how a top 10 team is an underdog to a 2-loss team on the road, so I'm taking Michigan as well, as much as it pains me to say it.
Luke?
Yeah, guys, I'm just going to go with what I have to go with, and that's Washington. If you're actually going to give me a 2-loss team who's not even smelling the top 25 rankings right now as a home favorite against a top 10 team who has 1 loss this season to the number 1 team in the country, but this is a Michigan team coming off a national championship, and for all those reasons you want to take Michigan, Vegas isn't just doing philanthropy here, making the line 2.5 and letting everybody go hammer the Wolverines to win this game.
Word.
Washington is going to have 80,000 strong on the field and storming it. After they beat Michigan, they're going to win this game and cover 2.5. It's weird. I just really think this is how it works sometimes when you see these numbers.
That's one I'm happy to be wrong about.
Okay.
All right.
That was a big word. Big word alert, says Mouse Cop when he dropped the philanthropy on us. Jolly's in the house today.
Big league.
He says, has anybody watched Michigan play? How in the world would you pick Michigan? Okay, that's fine. We'll see. All right, on to the pro game. That's it for the college game.
All right, pro game. Let's be quick here with Thursday Night Football as a little bit of a bonus game, but it's a good one. The Buccaneers and the Falcons. The Falcons are like a PI call away from being over 500. The Buccaneers, man, Baker Mayfield turning his career around, and I'm here for it. However, the Falcons at home, I think they get redemption on primetime. Give me Kirk Cousins. The Falcons cover 1.5.
Jake?
I'm with you. This is the team I picked to win the NFC South coming in, and I'm not out on the Falcons yet. I think their weapons and defense are too good. Kirk's going to get the job done. I'm taking the Falcons.
I think Tampa Bay's got the mojo going down there. I think they are all in on Baker. He's stepping up and delivering the goods. They're 3-1. These are always great games in this division. It may not be a great division, but when this division plays against each other, it's some of the best football and the closest games in the league. Buccaneers, roll! Let's go, Luke.
All right, here we go, guys. The biggest one of the week, the Bengals and the Ravens. We talked about the line already. 2.5-point favorites are the road Baltimore Ravens. Somebody go before me. Jacob, Dad,
Jake.
somebody. I don't even know yet.
I'll take it. I'm going to do it. Oh, there it is. It's Bengals. It's the Bengals. Plus 2.5. You know what? I'm going to take it. Because what happens if we lose? This is a protect my heart bet. Because if we lose this game, I don't really know what I'm looking at the rest of the year. So I'm betting on the Bengals because I think this team recognizes what they need to do to get it done. Hopefully they're just able to do so.
Brian B. says Tom is picking Baltimore. Wrong. I'm taking the Bengalis. I think they show up and get the dub this week. I take Cincinnati. Luke?
Yeah, give me that. Bang it right there. Cincinnati all day. 2.5. That's a clean sweep for the fellas right there. I think that the Bengals win this game outright. You can leave the points in Baltimore.
This is a straight homer show. I never thought it would come back to this. It used to be when Casey and Paul Fritchner were here. We've gotten away from that, and now we're all in again on a homer show. Okay, what else?
All right. This is a really good game in the AFC. The Bills and the Texans. 1-point spread, so pretty much a pick-em, like all these games. Thursday night's pretty much a pick-em. The Bengals-Ravens, arguably a pick-em at 2.5 without that meaningless hook. And this one, right on 1. Bills, bad loss on Sunday Night Football. The Texans, the fighting C.J. Strouds, they are a dominant presence in the AFC. I'm going to go with them. They have so much swagger. They're so good at home. And I think that their offense can keep up with Buffalo And I don't think that the Bills' defense can keep up with this Texans' offense. However, I do think that Houston is able to at least limit or turn over Josh Allen. That's going to be the difference maker in this game. Give me the Texans.
Jake?
I like the Bills in this one. I think the Bills on the road, I like that they're getting a point on the road. I think C.J. Stroud is due for some growing pains at some point, and we saw it a little bit against the Vikings.
Yep.
He struggled very much against that Brian Flores defense, and I think this is a game Josh Allen wins. This spread, to me, feels like an overreaction to a Ravens blowout. I think the Bills are one of the best teams in the league. I'm rocking with them.
All right, I'm going with Buffalo. I think Buffalo just had a hiccup last week. I think they've got a good team. I think they've got a focused team. I think they've got an excellent head coach. I'm a C.J. Stroud guy. I think he's going to have a phenomenal career, but I think Buffalo shows up this week, especially after what happened to Baltimore. All right, we got one more or two more?
One more, and then we have, or actually two more, and then we have what could be the move. So the Jets and the Vikings are going to play in London at 9 a.m. on Sunday. This is a weird one. The Vikings, easily the most impressive team in the NFL, just from what their expectations were and quarterback situation. J.J. McCarthy goes down, but forget him. It's the Sam Darnold show right now. They dominate again in that first half in Green Bay. They're 4-0 right now, guys. They're 2.5-point favorites. Forget all that. Give me the Jets, Jets.
Same with me, Jets, Jets. I'm with you. Jake?
That makes it 3 across the board,
all
gentlemen.
Right.
It's the Jets.
That makes me want to change.
Me too.
Makes me want to change. I'm not a believer in the fighting Sam Darnold's like Luke is.
I am, but I think that this is a situation where there might not be a team in the league that looks better than the Vikings, and the Jets right now just scored 10 points or less than 10 points against the Broncos. Why is this spread not bigger? I'll take Aaron Rodgers.
Fair enough. Okay, Luke?
Yeah, I think that's just a weird one where you got to go with Rodgers on foreign soil. But Sunday Night Football is a really good game. It's going to have some implications in regards to the city of Cincinnati and the AFC North, the Cowboys and the Steelers. Pittsburgh's just so hard to beat at home in prime time. They're drawing themselves as favorites here, which makes me like it even more. I'm all over Pittsburgh this week. I know I sold them as a playoff team, but the fact that the Cowboys were even in that game, and they were in it the entire way with the Giants last Thursday night. They're coming off extended rest, and they're underdogs from this Steelers team. I get that their record is what it is. They just lost to the Colts. The Cowboys aren't worth a hoot as of right now, and the Steelers are playing good football. I'll take them in a steal.
I'm on the Cowboys. I think the Steelers' defense looked really good against Kirk Cousins, his first game after an Achilles tear. Bo Nix, half a game of Justin Herbert, and then just lost to Joe Flacco. So Dak's by far the best quarterback they've played yet. I think that offense is going to roll. CeeDee Lamb's going to have a great day. I'm taking the Cowboys.
Great points there. Great points. Oh, I'm going with the Dallas Cowboys. I normally would go with the men of aluminum at home, but I'm not doing it this week. I think Dallas has got to start showing up. Of course, they've been saying that for 3 decades now, since Aikman left. All right, we got one more to go.
No, that's it for the picks. We have what could be the move, though.
What could be the move? Now, for those of you that don't know, Luke, please, I know Jacob knows. He's a young guy. You know you're a young guy. You guys had to teach me, being the old guy, about what the deal is on Make the Move. It means, what are you up to? What's a move you're making for this weekend? So, Jacob, we're going to start with you.
All right, well, my move this weekend is Sunday in my at-home studio, streaming the Bengals game for everyone on Chatterbox Sports YouTube. I do a watch-along every week, Chatterbox Bengals, so Sunday, that is certainly the move. If you can't get down to Paycor Stadium, can't get a ticket, make sure you tune in on YouTube.
And as a programming note, you have a show tonight.
That's right. Chatterbox Bengals will be live, as always, on every other Thursday from Champions Grill on Work Road, Grill with an E, Work with an E. Come check us out live, and if you can't make it live, it'll be live on YouTube as well. So make sure you tune in no matter what. And we had a special interview drop last night. So a lot of stuff coming out from Chatterbox Bengals in the last couple of days. Super exciting times. But this week, the move for sure is watching that Bengals-Ravens stream.
Luke?
Jeez, I hate to have nothing unique up my sleeve for what could be the move. I'm rocking with Jacob, but I'm doing it a whole weekend long. No Friday class tomorrow. I'm not on the road with the beat at Northwestern. I'm sitting back and watching literally every single game from Friday to Sunday. It's a huge sports weekend. We're coming off a great weekend last week. It's an enormous Bengals weekend, so I'm going to be dialed in on everything college football, everything NFL, and doing nothing in regards to homework, being in contact with my parents. Maybe I'll shoot my mom a text, and not so much my father. And other than that, I'm just going to be dialed in on the sports.
All right. Well, that's nice to hear that I won't hear from you. I really appreciate that. It's really, really nice. I got to say, I got a game to announce, so I'm flying out and going to Raleigh again for NC State and Wake Forest.
Nice.
But I'm really interested in watching the Friday night game with UNLV. They're undefeated, right? If they win against Syracuse, I'm going to be doing their game at Oregon State.
No way.
Coming up.
That's awesome.
So I'm, even though I do mainly the ACC, we do have some Big 12 sprinkled, Pac-12 sprinkled in there. Pac-2 for now, but that's growing. But anyway, so, I'm going to be watching a little bit of everything. Friday night, Saturday, I'll be traveling. It'll be hard to watch some games after I do my game, trying to fly back. But then Sunday, Bengalis, without a doubt. I can't go out drinking with my friends anymore because I'm working all weekend. So it's a dry weekend. It won't be for you and Luke.
Probably not, no.
Luke,
if I
not
had
for
to
you
guess.
either, right? Dry weekend?
No, of course. Where you're currently talking to me is I'm in a dry chapter in a dry house. I actually saw something on the bulletin board that there's some Oktoberfest themed party on Saturday, but I figured I'd be dialed in on the CW instead, watching NC State play and listening to you on the call. I'll give you all the critiques you need.
Yeah, and you were critiquing me last week, as I normally do for you when you're calling games. And you're calling you got soccer and volleyball coming up here soon. So go have a great day. Go have a great weekend. And I will, Lukey, I'll talk to you maybe sometime soon, although you just said that you're not going to. So, Lukey,
No, I was joking.
have a great weekend.
All right, thanks, guys. See you, Jacob.
All right, Jake. Who you picking, real quick, Jake? Who you picking tonight, Mets or Brewers?
Taking the Brewers. I hate the Brewers. I would love to see the Mets win, but it feels so Mets to lose the only 2 3-game wild card series since the new era. So 10 of the 12 have been sweeps. The only 2 haven't been Mets. Just feels like Mets are going to take this loss. If the Brewers can win with Montas on the mound, I'm sure they can win with anyone.
Okay. All right. It'll be fun to watch. I'm taking the Brew Crew as well, and I'm rooting for them to win. Okay, thank you to everybody who was in the chat. Thanks to all of you who are watching, whether you're watching live or downloading later. Jacob, great job today, as always. Thank you.
Thank you.
You're on it. Much appreciated. Everybody have a great weekend. God bless. We'll see you Monday morning at 9:15. Have a great weekend.